So, I'm right here, right now, with the man himself, Brandon Buckingham, man. We're right here. I'm recording this. You know what I'm saying? We've met in person. We hung out in New York a couple of months back. We've stayed in touch, man. And you know, it's good to be speaking to you again on camera.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you again, Ross. They don't know we recorded a song 4 or 5 months ago with Shaw G's in New York City.
Bro, I
They're yet
can't
to
lie,
hear
man.
it.
I went back to London, man. I was telling my friends I had a song with Shah G's. No one believed me. No one believed that I had a song with Shah G's, bro. You know what I'm saying? We got to show it, man.
Yeah, it'll come out. It'll come out eventually. You know me, I'm just stacking up content. Got a child on the way, so got to have a lot of stuff in the vault.
No, that's good, man. It's good to stack up content. Like for me, I feel like I'm just constantly chasing content of like just spending weeks and weeks and weeks trying to learn everything about a topic, man. It's hard. So, you know, stacking content I feel like is a really like it's good momentum. Like I wish I could stack content, but I'm trying to be like you, man. Hopefully I'll get there. I'm trying to just like improve my processes as a YouTuber at the moment. But you kill it, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're making these epic documentaries where it's like the equivalent of four of my videos in one. It's 2 hours long, so it's like, you know, be hard to stack up those 2 hour videos.
Well, you know what it is, bro. It's like I am interested in so many different scenes, whether it's the UK scene. I've only really been learning about the Philly scene over the last couple of months. Obviously, Chicago, that's a big part of my story. But it's kind of like I got to lock into one area for like a whole month. And then it's almost like I can't listen to music from other areas because I'm just so dialed into like Chicago or Philly or whatever I'm working on at the time. So sometimes it's tough, man, but it's like, you know, it's a different, yeah, it's a different kind of approach. I find myself getting just so sucked into the worlds that I'm looking into. It's kind of an interesting contrast because I feel like you physically go and get sucked into these places and actually immerse yourself in these worlds, whereas I kind of just digitally immerse myself in a place and try and learn everything I can about it. And I think there's so much value in both of those approaches, but it's very hard to do both. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you max out one stat, you kind of can't max out the other stat, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a taste of what it was like to make just a 7 minute part of your video because Duel wanted me to put the intro breaking down all of his hood politics. It was pretty exhausting. The amount of research and just editing from nothing, just me talking and making it visually entertaining is it's a lot of work.
You know
A
what?
lot of
That
work,
that's
bro.
that's super interesting, man. Because I was really curious. Like that first, like you say, like 7 minutes or so of the video, you lay everything out. Like I've been looking into Philly over the last few weeks, and you lay everything out in such a concise, tight, like you know, it's very. Like I was impressed. I was like, damn, like you're really communicating like what's going on in this area, how deep it gets. Obviously, you explained the backstory behind a lot of the important people that have kind of came up with Duel and like were a big part of his story. So I really respected what you did, and it was actually dope to see you kind of break down some of that history at the start of the video, and then you pop up in that place and you give people that extra context. So I thought it was an incredible video, man. I thought you did a really good job of communicating what goes on in Philly.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ross. I did make one big mistake. I should have done all my research before. I did it backwards. Like we did the video May 13th, soon after because I linked with Skrilla, met Duel. Duel wanted me to do the video, so I pulled right back up, did very brief research. And then as I was editing the video over the next 3 or 4 months, I learned about how deep everything goes. And then when I was editing it, some of the stuff he was talking about, I'm like, he's referencing people that have been killed by his set and all this stuff. And it just started to go very deep. And I don't know. I've never been. None of my videos are like that. You know what I mean? That was like a unique video. Like I did the Jacksonville video where I
Mm.
referenced your video and talked about the beef, but I just talked to this how it affected the society. I didn't actually go hang out with Fulio or Young and A. So I don't know. It was really interesting having my perception of Duel, just ground level, and then learning about the backstory. And it I don't know. It's dark. It's really a dark thing.
It is, man. You know, that's one of the difficult things about what I do is you know I find myself just reading about murder so often, and you know it's really part it kind of comes off the back of how violent like drill music has gotten. I swear, when I started doing this job, there weren't so many songs about people that got killed. Nowadays, it's damn near like a lot of the music is about murders, and you know it's a real intersection between like true crime and like music, gangster rap culture, and it's sort of like we're in a very dark era of music, I would say. And it seems to be happening city to city. So, just off the back of what you just said, like one of the first things I wanted to ask you, just in general, just out of interest, was like, how much did you know about Philly, kind of the drill scene and the history before you went there? I know you went and linked up with Skrilla before you met Dull, and he appeared briefly in that kind of initial vlog that you did with Skrilla, but like, what was your like sense of the Philly scene? Like, did you feel like it was similar to Chicago? Did you feel like it was its own beast? Like, where did you slowly get the understanding of like how shit goes down in Philly?
I hate to admit it, I literally knew nothing. I know a decent amount about the Chicago situation and about the DC situation because that's close to where DC is close to where I live, but I knew nothing. I knew about Kensington. I knew about Skrilla. I didn't know who YBCDul was when I met him. I didn't know what YBC was. I didn't know who Lil Bucks was. I didn't know what CCK was. I didn't know any of this stuff. I mean, I remember hanging out with Duel and listening to his music afterwards, and he would say like a buddy and a fro and a Rizzy and a snipe, and I thought that was just like some kind of cool slogan, or it's like there's a lot of instances of that, like even in the Chicago scene when they're like shouting out like JoJo and smoking on these people, and people don't even know what it means, and then you like actually realize what it means. You're like, holy shit! Like buddy and the fro and the Rizzy and the snipe, those are four people, some of which are young teens that were blatantly murdered.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
it's it's messed up, man. I feel like I don't know if you remember, yeah, but like obviously one of the first names that was always dissed as someone that was getting smoked was Tuka from Chicago,
yeah,
and there was that big scandal. Like this is like the early days of Chicago drill. Where I think it was like Young Ma and a couple other rappers said that they were smoking Tuka. They literally, I think they just thought Tuka was like the hot new cool word for weed, and they were talking about
yeah.
we smoke Tuka, and then before you know it, they're having to apologize to the GDs in Chicago. And I feel like it's interesting because it's almost like this has happened city to city. Like what you said about the buddy and the fro, like I get where you're coming from. Like I feel like when people drop that when Young and Ace dropped that "Who I Smoke" song and they're talking about we're smoking baby, like people were singing that. You
Yeah.
had Aiden Ross singing that. He had no freaking idea what he was saying and how deep that it was getting. And I think it's like that city to city. It's hard to expect a journalist to necessarily know who is the weed in every single city and not disrespect them after gate, especially if you're more trying to go and immerse yourself into the scene. So I think this world is there's a lot of traps and there's a lot of very fine lines between offending people and stuff. Like it's kind of a scary, dangerous world. Like you don't want to say the wrong thing and offend the wrong person.
For sure. And I don't know, I think Duel was one of the few. I mean, there's not that many people that are that openly brazen in talking about these things. So it's like, forgive me for my ignorance, but it was like I hung out with him for like 5 or 6 days, and I thought I consider Duel a friend. We got along great. And then I guess I was a little bit ignorant about some of the stuff that was going on that I learned about in the editing process. But I don't know, it's crazy. It's all
Yeah.
really crazy. Like I know I got a lot of criticism for that song, hopping on that song. I wanted to do a song because we did a song together. You saw how that organically happened. We're hanging out, we're filming. The rapper wants to go to the studio, so we go to the studio. I wanted to hop on the beat first, so I did my verse with Duel rapping about drug addiction and whatnot. Then he did his verse. I thought it sounded good. I didn't know what he was talking about. Um, uh, and then we did the music video. It was supposed to go on the vlog. He ends up wanting to drop it on its tape, and I'm like, yeah, that should be fine. And then as I'm doing my research, I'm like this might put a target on my back. Like you're dissing people in the song. I don't know if this is a good idea. And he's like, it's fine. Like look at Skrilla. I've done all these songs with Skrilla. Skrilla's fine. It's no big deal. And I'm like, whatever, whatever. And then he says he wants to do a music video, and
I'll be honest, man. Like when I saw that video, I almost felt like bad for you because I almost felt like you'd been tricked and maybe like sucked into some danger that maybe you didn't sign up for. Because I saw that and like I listened. I break down music professionally, right? So I listened to your verse and I'm like, there's nothing really offensive. You're talking about drug addiction and like your experiences and like stuff that
all
you and
my
people
friends that
around
have
you,
died. Yeah.
exactly stuff that's gone on around you, that's what rap's about. That's authentic rap. You're talking about what's true to you. You're not realizing that he's putting you like. I think what was interesting was it's like you didn't say anything offensive. You probably didn't realize anything offensive was going down. But then the context that Dulls kind of placed you in with the whole Buckingham thing and then the Ronald McDonald thing, it's almost like I kind of felt bad for you. I felt like, damn, like he kind of a real disrespectful gangster kind of tricked you into some
No, I
dangerous
mean,
shit.
I,
Like,
I
did you
don't want
feel
to
that
act
way?
like, yeah, I don't want to act like I'm a victim or anything. Like I'm a 29-year-old grown man. I should have been smarter. But you know, just I don't know. I don't want to say he tricked me. Long live Duel. I really like Duel. It was my decision, and I I apologize to the families of the people that were dissed on that song. Like, I didn't mean to diss them, and I know how it looked. I never chose the song or the title McBuckingham. We weren't wearing clown makeup. I know Poetic Flocka was like, he's wearing clown makeup. Like, no, that was an AI thing. That was not my decision. But it was much like when you saw me in the studio with Shawji's rapping. He's like, I told him, like, don't diss anyone. You know what I mean? I had the similar sentiment with Duel, like, don't diss anyone. And I just think Mr. Disrespectful is going to be like, okay, yeah, not going to diss anyone. Okay,
Well,
buddy, bro.
it was low key a little bit disrespectful to you, but I feel like there was probably too much going on for you to really like appreciate what he was sucking you into. I think it's interesting because the more I'm learning about him, obviously, Mr. Disrespectful was his moniker. That was his that was his persona, is kind of disrespecting people and kind of disrespecting, not respecting the law and just like not respecting shit basically. And I feel like that was almost like there was a part of me that almost felt like, damn, like he, I said it to you in a message the other day of like, it made me wonder, like, if it was you that got hurt getting sucked into this world, like, would he have, how would he have responded? Like, would he have respected that? Would he have felt like he was responsible for you getting hurt? It's an interesting one because he is, from everything I've watched about him, he's a very loose cannon, but at the same time, you built a relationship behind the scenes. You kind of became quite friendly. You probably trusted him, so it's from the outside, it's a very like interesting scenario to kind of witness.
Yeah, no, it's definitely complex, and I don't want to make it seem like he tricked me or he disrespected me or whatever. I made my own decision, and I should have been more informed. But definitely, like, I think if something bad were to happen to me and not Duel, I think he would have cared. Me and Duel, as much as people just think we hung out for that one day, we hung out 5 or 6 times, and we talked on the phone like almost every day or every other day, especially the 3 weeks leading up to editing the video. And like, in the editing process, a lot of bad stuff happened within YBC, like Mir Pablo getting arrested, BD getting arrested, and we're talking on the phone these days, and I got to see the raw emotion of Duel. And as much as people want to make him out to be, make things out to be black and white and no gray area, these are humans that are experiencing a lot of trauma, and it's not just Philadelphia and YBCDul. A lot of these people that I've hung out with have opened up to me off camera and even cried and been really upset about their friends that have died and the bad things that have happened, and they just can't express that on camera because they're in an active war zone, and you don't want to show weakness. I mean, we have people that go overseas into Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff, and they fight, and they come back and they have to do all of these mental health stuff, and they're on medication and therapy. And then these young men are in a microcosm of war where they're seeing real death and real people losing their lives, and they're nothing. They're just out on the street selling drugs and with a gun and with a microphone. So I don't know. I think it sounds weird, and I've like people have like kind of gone off on me when I said this, that like Duel was a good person. But it's like, people are complex. You know what I mean? People are very complex. I've done horrible things in my life, like I've sold drugs, I've robbed people, I've been arrested a ton of times. Like, it's hard to break someone down into a good or bad. But if you were Duel's friend and you knew him personally in that regard, he was a good friend. Although if he wanted something, he was very pushy. If he if he wanted something from you or whatever, if you knew Duel, he definitely was hard to say. He didn't take no easily, but he was a caring, kind person. And I think if I did get killed, I think he would be upset about that. I don't think he would like be excited or anything.
I think that's important that you say all that, man, because he painted himself as kind of a supervillain, but he's a human at the end of the day. We're all human. We've all done bad things, things we regret, things we were maybe pushed into doing by circumstance or the situation. And it's a real dude. I'm sure there were a lot of people that Duel, did a lot of positive things for, and he made a difference in their life. So I feel like that's the other side of this story of like, yeah, he's Mr. Disrespectful, but that's coming off the back of losing a lot of his own friends to the streets, being targeted, being mocked by his rivals. And even though he's Mr. Disrespectful, the supervillain of Philly, he's, a real guy that did good things for people too. And, he was a product of his environment, and the environment in Philly is just getting more and more violent, dangerous, and disrespectful, it seems, as the weeks go by, and he's a product of that.
Yeah, I mean, he was the breadwinner for his group for the most part, But yeah, like there's a video. I don't want to say too much. There's a video of a shooting happening in Philadelphia that has 13 million views on YouTube. It's someone popping out at a gas station and shooting, and that's a testament to like that just a shooting on video gets more views than all of their music combined. And that just shows like humans' natural proclivity to tune into violence. So can you really blame Duel if he, not just Duel, but anyone that's living in an impoverished area with, they don't have both parents, they don't have food, they don't have money, and they want to make it out, and they see like, hey, let me just feed into this violent environment I'm in and rap about it, and it'll be a serious way out. Like, oh, I want to be like Lil Durk, I want to be like Chief Keef. Like, can you really blame them? And I know as much as you want to disavow it, and I can say it's bad all day, I don't live in that environment. And these people, it's a real opportunity for them to make it out. And yeah, I do want to say something. I don't know if I can say this. I'll try to be as vague as possible. Whenever Duel and me shot the McBuckingham music video, I found myself in the middle of a shootout where people were shooting guns, and two of the people we were with got hit, and I got to see Duel in the line of fire when he was getting shot at, and he did not display a single drop of fear. He immediately was like ready to go and to defend, told me and my camera guy to get down, and was unfazed. And he immediately recorded a different music video, the Baltimore music video, right after. I left. I was like, I'm leaving. I couldn't take my car because my car was a part of a crime scene. It was in the yellow tape. So I Ubered to my friend Baby 50's house. But Duel immediately started filming a music video right after and was kind of like laughing at me like, oh, you're really going to leave. Like, you're really going to leave. I'm like, bro, they're fucking just shot. They just shot at us. People are going to the hospital. But I mean, think about that level of how much he's been through and the trauma he's experienced to where he's unfazed by gunfire coming our way. I mean, I was like trembling and scared. And I've been shot at like 5 or 6 times. But he didn't care at all. He seemed ready for whatever happened.
Yeah, I feel like that's really important to say because, you know, like I say, him being a product of his environment, you have to have been in some serious situations to not be fazed by a shootout like that. And I feel like, the other topic that I want to get onto with you is kind of like, you know, I know that you had a back and forth with DJ Academics. He kind of disrespected you with the sort of saying that you're voyeuristic in the way that you do things. But I feel like the fact that you're out there getting caught up in shootouts, I don't know how much more deep into it you need to get. I feel like I don't personally feel like it's voyeurism. I feel like there's been a misunderstanding there. But for you to actually be out there in the line of fire getting shot at, I think if anything, that's a much more real indictment of how actually involved and how serious you are about showing the reality in these places that you would put yourself in danger to tell the story that's important, stories that aren't really being told in areas that are sort of being left behind and not really documented by the mainstream media in a sensitive way. So I think it's really important that you do that. And I think that, you know, I want to maybe ask you, I know that there's been some back and forth and stuff since the video, but you know, I know you, so I feel like I know that your intentions are clear-hearted when it comes to making this type of content. But like, how would you explain to people what you do as far as like, you know, you're trying to give, what are you trying to achieve when you go into an area and you want to try and give a voice to the people there, or you want to try and give a window into a certain area that maybe some people think you shouldn't be able to do because of where you're from or how you look, but like you've gone there with a mission and an intention. Like, what's in your heart when you're actually going and making a film like this?
So whenever I go, like the thing that I think sets my videos apart from other people is I'm like I'm really hanging out and being friends with becoming friends with these people and building real relationships. So now people want to say like I'm glorifying things or I'm making things seem good. Like, for instance, we were hanging out with Shawji's that night. Did it seem appropriate for me to start lecturing him about the dangers of gun violence and being on drugs and in the hood? Like, it's not. We're supposed to be hanging out. We're just supposed to be hanging out as friends. So I want to show like the life. Like, that's why my videos are usually titled like "Life in This Place." So when I went out to hang out with Duel or Skrilla, I just want to go hang out with them. Whatever they're doing, whatever they're taking, I'm taking. We're having a good time, and wherever they want to go, we go. So I just let them take the wheel, and I come along with my camera, and I'm just kind of an accessory. But I mean, these claims of like voyeurism, look up the definition of voyeurism. Off the top of my head, it's like, first of all, that's a sexual connotation, which I know ACT didn't mean that. But secondarily, it's like watching people without their permission. You get a kick out of watching without their permission. That is literally what Academics is doing. He's watching my video, reacting to my video of me and YBCDul without his permission or my permission from the comfort of his home. That's voyeurism. What I did is I was invited to Philadelphia by YBCDul, welcomed, and came there in person, paid for everything we did, had a great time. And that's called real life. That's not voyeurism. So he is, by textbook definition, a voyeurist, minus the sexual stuff. And I'm actually someone who went out there in real life. And I know I'm about to release a video like dissing him and stuff. And of course, I hope you know. I think that what academics and what you do brings real value. Sitting back, reporting the news, breaking it down, lining it all up has real value. So when I'm telling him to sit behind his computer and stream like a bitch, like I'm not. That's not aimed at you. I'm just firing back at him because he's too scared to go into the situations that I go into. And he says, well, yeah, that you can only do it because you're white. But one of my close friends, Amont, a small YouTuber from the DMV, Ayeemont, he's black, and he does the exact same content that I do. Goes into these hoods, and they welcome him with open arms. So I think academics is just a little bit out of touch of what's really going on in these hoods. They're people. They're not just going to slaughter you mindlessly. You know what I mean? Like he's so afraid. He thinks like, oh, I'm black. If I go there, they're going to do something. They're probably not. Of course they could. Of course they could. When the bullets start flying, it's crazy, and they definitely won't pick a target. I'm not safe there just because I'm white. You know what I mean? You saw the video that happened to Duel, how quick that. I was in the backseat with the camera. Do you think he would have said, oh, there's a white guy in the backseat with the camera, I'm not shooting? Those bullets are hitting bodies, white or black, I guarantee you. And yeah, I don't know. Some of this stuff with academics, I don't mean to posture act like I'm a tough guy. I'm a super civilian. You've been around me, Ross. Like I'm not a tough guy at all, especially when it comes to firearms and that gang stuff. But academics is definitely not a tough guy either.
Well, listen, I am a big fan of both you and academics, and I feel like there's a lot of value in what you both do. I personally feel like if it was me, having watched academics' stream where he dissed you originally, I feel like he hadn't seen a lot of your content. I feel like if anything, I think when he first mentioned the voyeurism thing, I think he kind of made some comment to sort of say like, oh, I haven't really seen much of this guy's stuff. But he did compare you to Andrew Callahan, which I know, people have mixed feelings about.
Andrew makes great content, and Andrew's been rapping for 10 years. Like I've been rapping since 2013. Andrew Callahan's been rapping since a similar time frame. Andrew makes way better content than academics, no offense. So like acting like Andrew Callahan doesn't care about the culture or isn't for the culture because he's white is insane. Like he has videos with the camera guy that used to film for Lil Peep, Wiggy or something. He's got videos with that guy. Like he has his interest in the culture goes deep. I was filming music videos for people like Band Honey Jug, Lil Ali, Jigga Flames back in like 2017, 2018. Like I've been rapping and involved in the culture, if you will, for like over a decade. And what exactly is the culture? Isn't it the music and what comes with it? The music, the style, the lingo, the personality, or is it all skin color? Like I don't really understand that, because even the roots of hip hop are embedded in things like Third Bass, Beastie Boys. Even in modern stuff, you have Young Lean and these people that are trendsetters in the culture and in the movement. So I think trying to gatekeep it because of skin color is not good. And all academics ever did was DJ at Rutgers. I'm sorry, like he DJ'd at Rutgers. Does he even rap? How many songs has he dropped? I'm not trying to I'm only firing back at him because he fired back at me. You know what I mean? I'm not.
No, I get what you're saying.
I'm not afraid of a confrontation or a fight. You know what I mean?
No, but I don't think Callahan's a voyeurist either. But I more brought that up just because I know that Callahan and academics have a kind of a personal beef. So I feel like if anything, he was sort of like, painting you with the same brush without necessarily knowing the scope of your content. Because I feel like I've watched a lot of your content and I've met you, and I feel like your heart's in the right place with the content. And again, I feel like sometimes he makes a quick judgment, he makes a comment, and then shit just blows up to another level that it doesn't need to be. And I would say that there's a lot of respect for what both of you do. It's very different. It's a different approach. I personally feel like the whole voyeurism thing in general, I just don't necessarily agree with it on the whole, because I think at the end of the day, everyone has a right to have an opinion about things that are going on in the world. People have an opinion to report and go places and do things. And I just think that if you're being welcomed into an area, by people that want you to be there and they want you to film the goings on and they want to bring you into their circle and you're willing to, put your safety on the line to do that, I feel like there's respect to be had in that. So I personally feel like, it's kind of a positive thing that you're doing, but it's difficult when everyone approaches things with a different approach, and like the results are so different, and it's just so easy for this group of people to kind of like throw stones at that group of people. And unfortunately, race is also a thing that gets brought into it. I think when you're a white creator reporting on black issues or the black community, it is a minefield, and a lot of people just, the conversation's over there. The fact that you're white is basically you're disqualified, which I wouldn't agree with, but that is unfortunately how some people do think in this space.
I don't know. The whole thing with academics is very weird, and the timing that he did it the day after Duel died just really rubbed me the wrong way, because he didn't take into consideration that maybe I was actually friends with Duel. I mean, have you seen the responses from anyone in Duel's camp? Like, I don't know. Everyone's grieving, man. Like the shit is fucked up. And all anyone from Dul's camp has said is they know how much he cared about me and I cared about him. I was like, from what I know, I was like the second or third person that Skrilla called to tell the news to, and uh, I know as much as people want to act like I was like, yes, he's dead. The video's gonna go crazy. Like the video is a 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, even after his death. And even if it was a 1 out of 10 and got 500 million views, it wouldn't be worth losing a friend. It was very, I mean, I don't know. It fucking
I think
sucks.
I think a lot of people though they're very insensitive around this, and unfortunately, you did get to know Duel very well at a time when you would have never had any inkling that he might have passed so soon after building that connection. And I think a
Well,
lot of
the
people
last week of his
online.
life was crazy, Ross, with BD and Mir Pablo getting like his whole everything was like falling apart, bro. And I kept telling him like, bro, just stay out of Philly. Things are not looking good. Like, I don't know, it's like it's just crazy how it all fucking how it all turned out. And for a 16-year-old that's just affiliated with the Mont, not even in CCK, and to come and do it like that is just like that's just fucked up, dude. And I really hope, God willing, that nothing bad happens to me or any of my friends like Tommy G or Andrew going in some of these environments, because to kill someone mostly for clout, as the Philadelphia district attorney said, is a scary thing. That means there's targets on all of our backs essentially to get
well,
robbed or to get killed.
Well, that kind of brings me to my next point, which is a more of a broader question on just the Philly culture. The more I've learned about Philly, the more I feel like it's sort of almost looking like a sort of Chicago on steroids, or like a speed run of Chicago, because you've got these young guys, they're just trying to catch as many bodies as possible. They're killing innocent people by accident, not really
Athletes.
caring. Yeah, and it's really crazy. What was your sense, having spent time in Philly around people involved in this lifestyle, as far as like the mindset? What is it? Some people think the drill music's making people violent. Some people think the violence always been there. Some people think social media is making it worse. Like, what do you think's going on in Philly that's just made it such a hotspot for this stuff?
Well, it's a chicken or the egg argument. I think that social media is the biggest issue. The opportunity for clout and money and a way out is a big deal. Obviously, all major cities have gun violence and gang violence. That's just a reality of it. But if there was no reward with clout and money, it wouldn't be going on for sport like this. Like you hear in Philadelphia, they treat it like a sport when they're trying to up the score, the Philly scoreboard, all this stuff. And if you shout out to FS DeBender, FS DeBender's from YBC. He makes good music, but a lot of his stuff he talks about explicitly like it's a game. The killings are like a game. Not to say that he's a killer or anything, but you get what I'm saying. I think it's all comes back to social media, all of it. And I know like the gang hierarchies were wiped out at sometime in the 80s or 90s, and there was less like organization, and now it's just all these neighborhood cliques, and so it's just every man for themselves. I mean, you saw Duel had ops; he was surrounded by his ops, and the more he dissed them, and the more he dragged and was disrespectful, the more attention and money he got. Like one of his biggest moments was digging up that grave, even though he digged up a pile of dirt that wasn't the gravesite, but the message is still the same, and the impact is still the same. Because the guy whose grave he digged up, he had an unmarked grave, so that's symbolic of something. And I'd like to. I don't know what people think. I think about it. I disavow the disrespecting of the dead under all circumstances. You know what I mean? There's people that I hate right now. I don't hate academics, but if like academics, I don't like him at all right now. I think like at all. If he died, I would send my condolences to him. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. I don't want, you know what I mean? Same thing with like someone like Sneeko or Danny Mullen. Like as much as I don't like these guys, if they were to die, I would actually feel sad about that, and I wouldn't disrespect them because I don't believe in disrespecting of the dead. I think that's a bad thing. But am I here to judge people that do disrespect the dead when their dead is being disrespected? That's another chicken or the egg situation. Like, so YBC Josh was one of the first people killed in the YBC gang war. From what I understand, that's like first blood. So if he gets killed and then the other side's bragging about it, I don't know. What are you going to do? Let me ask you a question, Ross. If your best friend or your brother was murdered, and then the person who murdered him made a rap song about it and took to social media bragging about it and disrespecting you and calling you a pussy and saying they're smoking on your brother, what would you do?
I think it's a great question, man. It's hard for me to put myself in those shoes, but there's a part of me that feels like I probably would crash out and do something crazy. Fortunately, I'm not placed in that situation, and that's why I feel like it's so important to have sympathy with these guys. Yeah, you're Mr. Disrespectful, you're pretending to dig up an Op's grave and you're smoking this person and that person, but you're coming from a culture where your friends have just been killed, your people that you loved are getting smoked by these people on the other side. And I mean, it's not surprising. Yeah, it's easy for an outsider to be like, oh, everyone's crashing out, they're crazy, they're throwing their lives away. But if you're actually dealing with that situation and people are smoking your dead friends, it's not, that becomes normalized behavior. It becomes a normalized behavior for you to then do that back. But the most unfortunate thing is I feel like that just creates a vicious cycle where it's just going to keep happening and keep happening. And I don't know how to stop it.
It's horrible. I mean, I was watching your documentary about Q50. Like, look at like little Jeff and Q50 seem to hop off the porch at a later age. So, say you're a good kid in a bad area, and then one of your friends is involved in some stuff, and then he gets killed. That could drag you in it through that way. My brother died at 34 years old. Rest in peace, Kyle Delaney, 2019. If someone had killed him, or any of my friends that passed away, Nate, Jared, Tommy, Joey, John, any of these people, if someone had killed them, bro, with like the amount of rage and anger and trauma I have from losing so many people, I guarantee you, I would want retribution. Not to say it's good or not to glorify it, but I mean, if you've ever felt the pain of losing someone, just imagine, and if you have, just imagine someone disrespecting them online. Oh man, at least you'd want to put hands on him. At the very least, you'd want to put hands on him.
It's only human to want to do that. Unfortunately, that's the situation. And then, you know, from city to city and state to state, you've got guys on either side dissing each other, smoking each other. It's hard to imagine it stopping. But going back to what you said earlier, I thought was interesting, is that the social media, I feel like it's so interesting when people try and blame people like you and me, or even the music. So rarely do you ever see people blaming the social media. And I think what's really interesting in Philly is that you've got a lot of these social media accounts reporting the deaths like they're sports. You know, I see a few Instagram accounts of people doing stat sheets for shooters in Philadelphia like they're basketball players, talking about accuracy score, defense score. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is like one of the most flagrant normalizations, trivializations of violence that I've ever seen. Like beyond Chicago, you got a million people smoking hookah, yeah, sure. But like, you know, the way that this whole Philly scoreboard thing plays out with like, they're actually treating it like ESPN, I think is one of the most twisted things I've seen in culture. And it's really tied to the social media accounts. You know,
it's pure dehumanization. And like I said, I'm not here to justify or try to act like I'm holier than thou, because I didn't grow up in that environment where that was happening around me and everything. But it is pure dehumanization, bro. Like the people will die, and it is just becomes an afterthought so quickly, and they're still internally processing the trauma. And these other people, the listeners of the music, they don't give a fuck. But I mean, how could you blame them? They're so removed from it. We're also removed from it. You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons I want to go into these environments, talk to these people in their environments, and meet them head on as a peer. You know, like that's why I don't talk down to people or act like try to have you ever thought about like maybe killing people's bad? Like, you know, gun violence is bad. You know, dissing the dead is like, they know, they're smart. They are very aware of these things. And the value I bring is like, how come no one's criticizing these? Sorry to get on a tangent, but how come no one's criticizing record labels, bro? I've helped people out behind the scenes that were going to sign a record label deal that was so predatory that I came out of pocket to help them at no benefit to my own, just so they wouldn't sign the deal. People are in bad situations and are desperate for money. And these predatory record labels are signing them to deals that they will never make money off of their art and their work. We should be more mad at record labels. I'm coming in, an independent person, spending money out of my pocket to promote people in the way that they would like to be promoted. You know what I mean? If you watch my Mexican OT video or my video with the Crips of Houston, Maxo Cream, no one's smoking on anyone or doing anything like that. I don't push that narrative. I don't force that. But I come in with promotion. I wish that when I was starting my YouTube career, someone came out to, you know, Carroll County, Maryland, and did a video about me and where I'm from.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think it's really important, and I really respect what you're doing. I feel like it's just so unfortunate how things played out and the timing, and you know, just all of the just dumb conspiracy theories and dumb stuff that came out, you know, following Dol's death. I think you're doing a really great thing. I think that what you're doing to report on different areas in these drill scenes is so crucial. I think that in years' time, people are going to look back and look at people like me and you and, you know, the other people in this scene and say that you were doing a really good thing as far as reporting on what was going on, doing it sensitively, doing it to provide context to what's going on, talking about the deeper issues, the social media, the record labels. You know, nobody's more happy when an artist gets killed than the record label, because the price of their posthumous album, 2, 3, 4, 5 albums they're going to pump out after somebody's died, has just gone up. And I think these sorts of conversations aren't being had in the mainstream, and the independent journalist going places and reporting on things is needed, especially in this era where I feel like the powers that be would rather just nobody talk about any of the bad stuff that's happening and nobody blame anything. The record labels can keep playing all the violent music that people are getting smoked and getting killed and they're making all the money, but no one else should be able to talk about it. And I think it's really important. So I really respect what you do, man. And I feel like, your reporting on the YBCDul story and Philadelphia in general is crucial and it's needed, and I really appreciate that, man. So I appreciate you taking the time to break it down for me, and give me your side of the story, man, because I think it's very important. It's much needed, and
Yeah.
people are going to look back at this for years to try and gain a better understanding of what was going on here, and you did a major part in spreading the word.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much, Ross. Thanks for the conversation. I want to say two things. I want to say, God willing, nothing bad will happen to me. But if something does happen to me that's bad ever in these hoods, it's my own fault. It's no one's fault but my own. I'm an adult. I can make my own decisions, and I'm very aware of the danger I'm getting into. Another thing is, I lost much more with dual passing than I gained from his passing. You know what I mean? We had plans to go out to St. Louis, to Chicago, to do a big give back in Philly, and yeah, it's just I don't know, bro. I don't want to get fucking emotional and fucking be weak on your thing, but yeah, rest in peace to Duel, man. It's fucked up. The whole thing's fucked up. It's fucked up on all sides. It's fucked up. Everyone he was dissing and disrespecting. I feel bad for their families as well. K3's mom, everyone, bro. I don't know. It's just
Man.
sad. It's a lot. It's a lot of trauma, bro.
No,
For them, I'm not trying to act like I'm. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree, man. I'm
bad.
sorry. I'm sorry for your loss, and rest in peace to everybody involved on all sides. I don't think anybody that got caught up in this thing and lost their life in the city of Philly deserved it or even knew what they were getting into. They were born into a very unfortunate circumstance, and it's just it's just unfortunately the facts of life. Like you said in your response to academics, it's like you're like a weatherman reporting on what's going on. You're not the cause of what's going on in Chicago. It's like a cyclone of negativity and violence going on in every city. And, the best thing you can do is document that. And I think you've done the whole story and that whole area justice. So
I want to say one more thing. You've just learned all this stuff about Q50. I'm learning about him as well through your video and through other things. I'm about to go be hanging out with them very soon. Do you think if once I go there and hang out with them, when something inevitably bad happens because they're so in deep, do you think that's going to be my fault or your fault in any way? I mean, given that I don't post anything that they don't want me posting.
Of course, I don't think that that's going to be my fault or your fault. But at the end of the day, people will say it's my fault. I explain very clearly in the Q50 documentary, like it's very unfortunate. He's saying that he's got 8 bodies. That lifestyle, realistically, it usually only ends one of 2 ways, either death or in jail. And it's hard for me. I pray that Q50 can get himself out of the situation that he's in. But also, it's hard to imagine his story end in any one of those 2 ways. That is the streets. And he says he's got 8 bodies. Will people say that it's our fault that happened? They definitely will. Will people point the finger and say who's really at fault, who really stoked the beef? It's so complicated. No one can ever say. But I think that at the end of the day, it's important to spread the word. And if you've got people that are in the community making millions, generating millions of views from their stories about catching 8 bodies, killing people in the scene, smoking this person or that person, I think we should be able to have a conversation about it, and it's important. But we got no hope of stopping it, and it's really unfortunate, man. I really pray for the day that maybe the society as a whole can have a breakthrough in some of these issues, because it's just not right that so many people are suffering.
Yeah, I've been invited out to Chicago by them, and I'm going to be like literally staying with them for 48 hours the whole time, sleeping in the same place, everything. But I've asked multiple people this question, a lot off camera. When will it end? When will the gun violence end? When will the gang violence end? And they always say the same thing: not till everyone is dead.
Yeah.
That's a horrible reality. What can I or you do or say about that? What can anyone do or say about that?
I honestly, man, not to big ourselves up too much, but I feel like the best thing that you can do really is just try and spread the word and spread a responsible, a socially responsible message and a positive outlook. Because unfortunately, that's the one thing that's missing in the music. I feel like anybody that's been through a tough circumstance in their life, you have the right to hop on music or to write a book, tell your story, make money off of your story, turn your difficult past into something positive, into a new journey, into a career. But a lot of the violent music does celebrate the violence. I feel like if anyone celebrates the violence, it's the rappers, and probably to a greater extent the record labels. And I do think that you're entitled, if you live that life and you've killed people and people have killed your friends, you're entitled to tell those stories. But the rappers don't necessarily do it in a responsible way. So I feel like that's why the scene does need people like us to create these pieces of content in a responsible way, to say, hey, you heard that song where he's talking about I've got this many bodies and I'm smoking this person and that person, he makes it look great. It's actually not that great. And maybe if often I try and end my videos with a sort of a socially responsible message, and I often say at the end, this has got to stop. I hope that the next generation doesn't have to go through this. Often I think to myself, man, if one kid in a hood that's dealing with those problems sees that video and feels like, man, I don't want to crash out like that person. I don't want to go out like this person. I understand why I'm getting sucked into this thing in a negative way, and I shouldn't be part of that. Often I wonder, man, if I could convince one kid to just not go down that not catch that body, not go down that path that the music glamorizes, I would see that as a win. But there's not much more that we can do, man. We can't jump in front of the bullets for people either. So you're right.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop.
Yeah, it's not going to stop. And yeah, I guess the closing statement I'd like to say is I just came back from Lebanon, where I was documenting the war between Israel and in the south part of Lebanon. And the H guys, I don't think I'm allowed to say their name because they're labeled as a terrorist organization. H guys in Israel, or IDF, they're in a battle, and I've been doing a lot of research about them. And they're actually doing drone strikes and killings, and then certain members of their media teams are bragging about it back and forth, much similar to what you're seeing in the gang communities of America. So it doesn't just exist in this little subsection. I'm currently witnessing an Israeli-Lebanon territorial dispute where there's killings and gloating and bragging about who got hit and who got killed. And, oh, you can't come outside. You can't enjoy your time outside. Like saying similar things like that, like come outside. It's very crazy. It's very interesting. But
I find that topic super interesting because I feel like what we do at the end of the day with covering stories like this, we're essentially covering micro conflicts. These are conflicts confined to one or two blocks maybe. But something I found really interesting when I was doing my research for my Young Boy video, I talked a little bit about the kind of history of slavery and the Civil War in Louisiana to really lay a very strong foundation for like why it's so hard to grow up as an African American in these southern states. But what I found interesting is in that research, I found out that it's like in the Civil War, marching bands on both sides, they had songs that were all about, marching the army into battle. They would have songs that they sung about the ops, the enemy. They would create these songs to hype themselves up to go into war, and they would go into battle and they would have conflict. And it really is no different. And often I felt like I wanted to put that into the Young Boy video because I felt like it was so important that making art and making music about conflict, to hyping your troops up to go and kill in battle, that's been happening all over the world for centuries. It's not a new thing. And the crazy thing is that when people try and say we should ban drill music or drill music's the problem, it's just a feature. It's just a feature of conflict. It's a micro conflict. You got guys from this block rapping about this block. You have, I'm sure there's probably, I reckon if you look hard enough for it, there's probably even some music to be found. Like I remember seeing after the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, like Ukrainian, it was like a drill song. It was like a drill beat, but they're on a tank talking about how they're going to kill the Russians. And it's like, this is just a part of conflict culture, and it's unfortunate that conflict is present at every level in society, and it always has been, and it always will be. There'll always be wars and battles, whether it's on the block or between nations, and that's probably one of the saddest parts of the human experience. One of the saddest features of humanity as a whole probably is just the never-ending cycle of conflict, and we're probably as likely to stop the violence on the blocks of Philly than we are in the Middle East. And that's just unfortunately the way it is. But the best thing you can do is to report on it responsibly, and I feel like you're doing that really well.
yeah, I'm trying my best, but I'm a very flawed, fucked up guy as well. I'm not perfect by any means, and I might get a little ahead of myself on some of these. Sometimes with I got to be sober. I'll just say that I should stay sober. But yeah, I don't know. I've already given my final statements, but I will say, since just you said what you said, Duel got into rapping because of the war in Philly. He didn't get into the war in Philly because of rapping, and that is documented. That's a fact. So, chicken or the egg in most situations. But I know in his specific situation, the violence and the war around him is what got him to rap. He didn't even consider himself a rapper. He was just someone who disrespected the dead.
Yeah, man, it's really interesting, and that was his opportunity to get out and to make money, and obviously that took his life. But we're living in an era where you can go online and disrespect people and make money out of it, and then you're on the clock of can you get out of the city before the city catches up with you, and it's messed up. But bro, I really appreciate you breaking down kind of the inside story for me, breaking down your side of things. I know a lot of people had things to say about the situation, but you're the man himself, and I really appreciate you giving me that context, bro. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Russ. You're great at what you do. I love your videos, man, and I hope you keep it up.
Appreciate that, man. Love what you do too.